Tonight, a look inside the Trudeau Institute in Saranac Lake, where experts and scientists study disease. Areas of focus are primarily tuberculosis and influenza. So when COVID swept into the States, Trudeau was ready to lend a hand. Our Mark Sonnero tells us how the development of a new COVID-19 therapeutic drug echoes the rich history of the Institute.
It might be Saranac Lake's best-kept secret, a scientific research institute among the trees, where scientists study bacterial infections like tuberculosis, influenza, pulmonary infections, and most recently, COVID-19. This small but mighty campus serves the scientific and medical community worldwide. But it didn't always look like this. As a matter of fact, it started out looking like this: a cure cottage or porch where people in the late 19th century suffering from tuberculosis retreated in search for a cure.
We identified some 900 local homes that were used to provide care for patients. And these were local homes that people opened and almost like boarding cottages for people who were ill. And one of the common features of a cure cottage is a cure porch, because really the idea was to spend as much time as you could out in the fresh air. And so people were sitting out all day and even sleeping out in the fresh air on their porches.
The cure cottages were the brainchild of Dr. Edward Livingston Trudeau, a medical doctor who suffered from tuberculosis himself. He came to the Adirondacks in 1873 to rest as his diagnosis progressed, only to discover that cold mountain air led to a remarkable recovery. In 1876, he moved his family to Saranac Lake so he could further investigate how to find a cure for the killer disease. He built a laboratory, a sanitarium, and studied the illness alongside other doctors and scientists. The cottages soon came after, as more and more sick people flocked to the mountains to heal. Trudeau was determined to find a cure, one that included scientific and homeopathic modalities.
You know, Dr. Trudeau was both a medical doctor and a scientist. And so what he established here in Saranac Lake was really trying to approach both from those angles. So he had a very scientific approach to running his sanatorium. They were always measuring patients' progress and changing their treatments and trying to evaluate how effective that was. But he knew that until he could find a way in this laboratory or in another laboratory to kill the germ that they could see under the microscope, they knew that they weren't really coming up with a true solution. So they were working from both angles.
Dr. Edward Livingston Trudeau believed in a hybrid approach to healing. Science meets nature, taking every available angle and attacking disease. And you know, the same thing is happening today. The Trudeau Institute takes their expertise and is applying it to the development of a COVID-19 therapeutic.
So the drug that is being created for is, of course, to inhibit the virus. So the way we are thinking about is, because we are going towards targeting the virus entry, think about something that you can have as a prophylactic. Right, the person who feels like maybe a little queasy, because one of the things about this disease, as you've all learned, is it's asymptomatic transmission. People who do not show symptoms, but they could still be transmitting virus. And for those people, if we have a drug that can be given prophylactically, that will help us to reduce down the virus load and eventually block the transmission.
Again, duality.
So the drugs are not replacement for the vaccines. You need, they both have different purposes. Like the vaccines, the way they work is they activate your immune response, so you have antibodies. So in future, if you see the virus, your immune system is already alerted that will produce these antibodies to block the virus. Whereas the drugs will help you if you have, like, even you just been exposed or you got really sick and you're in hospital, you need those drugs to treat you. So they both serve like different purposes, and like I said, in order to really come through and like really tackle this virus, we need both drugs and vaccines.
For Trudeau Institute President and Director Atsu Cookie, it was imperative that an institution with a long, rich history of research and development step up to do their part in battling the deadly coronavirus, not only with the development of a therapeutic drug, but also directly aiding the people of the Adirondacks.
There were two aspects, and one of them, which I'll mention a little bit more, is the response for frontline needs, for our community, for our region. And that was not work that is really research. It's things that we could do and stand up and help, particularly testing capability of the region. And the second major point was to reflect on whether or not we, as a relatively small institute, could make a difference in the large-scale ramp up of the pursuit of solutions to fight this coronavirus. So by March of 2020, I had decided yes on both accounts. We had to do both. And if you think about this, the frontline contributions for people that live in this region, this is more inspired by our founder, Edward Livingston Trudeau, who was an MD, and his grandson, Frank Trudeau, that created this facility, who was an MD. And on the research side, it was essentially clear that there was no way that an institute with our background could stand by.
Interestingly, what we find today, and Trudeau Institute is right in the thick of this, is that tuberculosis is still with us, and every year about 1 million people in the world still die of the disease, even though we've had this effective treatment since the 1950s. So it really says a lot about the magic bullet of medicine or a treatment only goes so far when you have a world where people are struggling with basic, with poverty and basic access to basic health, levels of health. So it's something that we're, I think, dealing with today with COVID. We now have this vaccine, but can we get it in people's arms enough to the point where we can move beyond the disease? Tuberculosis, we're still fighting that fight.
In Saranac Lake, I'm Mark Sonero with WPBS Weekly.